Robert Moore guides us. He who looks outward dreams, he who looks inward awakes. While some lean towards the empirical, the material world and its illusions, Moore calls us to the mystical, to the inner journey, to the encounter with the inner king. His work, both personal and with those who sought his wisdom and healing, illuminated the truth that life transcends the purely material, embracing the spiritual, the archetypal, the realm of the self. By turning our gaze inward, to the sanctuary, of the soul, to the dark cave where our fears and potentials reside, we awaken to life's meaning, connecting with our personal history, the fabric of our beliefs, and the ancestral patterns that shaped us. We often dissipate our vital energy on externals, society, how we are perceived, the world's expectations. In other words, we cling to the persona, the mask we present to the world, the warrior who protects himself behind armor, forgetting who we truly are, the magician who dreams and creates. To touch the essence of our being, our greater purpose, we need to delve inward, confront the shadow, integrate the king. In this heroic dive, we find ourselves, decipher our personal myth, the map of our beliefs, and glimpse who we long to become, the hero who fulfills himself. This inner encounter, this initiation, gifts us with direction, a purpose for life, the strength of the self. If we don't turn our gaze to the heart, to inner wisdom, our lives resemble someone else's dream, a predefined script where we follow the crowd, family, friends, colleagues, repeating patterns and forgetting our own dance, our unique melody. Looking inward is a process of self-discovery, the foundation of our true self, the hero's journey in pursuit of wholeness. For this inner journey, we need silence, meditation, contemplation, and analysis of our desires, dreams, and the whispers of the soul. By noting these longings, recognizing our talents, gifts, and latent potentials, we uncover the path that resonates with our soul, with the call of the self. In this constant practice, this inner work, we find the inner compass, the spiritual guide that leads us through life, through the labyrinth of existence. Integrate your opposites. Robert Moore reminds us, wholeness is not achieved by fragmentation, but by the integration of opposites. The exploration of archetypes, shadow and light, in the human psyche is central to Moore's work. These archetypes, such as the king, the warrior, the magician, and the lover, represent the energies and potentialities that dwell within each of us, both masculine and feminine. Moore illuminates the presence of these energies in all of us, regardless of biological gender. While the understanding of gender has evolved over time, the principle of psychic duality, the integration of opposites, remains fundamental to understanding our integral being, to the journey towards the self. The division of our psyche into conscious and unconscious, external, identity, and the inner archetypal dimension often leads to the neglect and repression of the unconscious, generating internal conflicts and energy blockages. To dissolve these conflicts, to achieve wholeness, it is essential to embrace and integrate this hidden part of ourselves, our shadow. The harmony between these opposites, between the king and the warrior, the magician and the lover, is reflected in more positive relationships with ourselves and the world. By observing our behavior, our interactions, our reactions, we can record and monitor our progress on this journey of integration, this process of individuation. To integrate opposites, the path lies in balancing archetypal energies, in embracing the shadow and integrating the light. This integration fosters healthier and more authentic relationships, a fuller and more meaningful life. We can measure this process by daily recording our decisions, interactions, and how we express our voice in the world, how we manifest our self. The balance between our conscious identity and our shadow, between our inner archetypes, is the key to wholeness and more fulfilling relationships, to the realization of our heroic potential. Analyze your dreams. Robert Moore states, "The dream reveals the inner truth of the individual as it really is, not as I imagine it, and not as he would like it to be, but as it is." Moore teaches us that dreams, often enigmatic and symbolic at first glance, reveal the secrets of our psyche, the mysteries of the unconscious, when analyzed with care, with reverence. To decipher the symbolic language of dreams, to enter the labyrinths of the unconscious, to hear the whispers of the soul, we need to overcome resistance, confront fears, and unravel archetypal messages. And when we finally understand the dream's message, the wisdom it brings, we are often surprised by the profound wisdom hidden behind seemingly trivial, banal images. Dreams express themselves through images, archetypal, symbols conveying instincts, the primal forces of our nature, the language of the self. They are sparks from the unconscious, windows to the soul, revealing the inner landscape, the profound truth of being, and therefore are precious on the journey of self-knowledge in the pursuit of wholeness. The analysis of dreams is not limited to a therapeutic context. It's an essential practice for all who seek to know themselves and transform. To unravel your dreams, record them immediately upon waking, before the mists of sleep dissipate. Keep a notebook and pen next to your pillow so that this is your first act at dawn, a ritual of connection with the unconscious. In a moment of tranquility, of introspection, reread the dream and note the keywords, the symbols that catch your attention, seeking connections with your life, your challenges, your desires. The teacup in the dream may represent the need for emotional nourishment, connection with the feminine, acceptance. After these associations, begin to interpret the dream, connecting the dots, deciphering the symbols, listening to the voice of the self. If in the dream you walk towards the kitchen to get the teacup, but an external noise, a roar of a beast, frightens you and makes you recoil, this may indicate the need to confront your fears, your internal blocks, to reconnect with your essence, with your creative potential. Dreams can be complex, multifaceted, and the more keywords you identify, the richer the associations and the deeper the interpretation, the closer you will be to the wisdom of the self. Learn to face reality. Robert Moore warns us, what you resist persists. According to Moore, resistance intensifies what we try to avoid, what haunts us. The more we flee from our fears, our shadows, the more life the universe puts us in front of them, invites us to confrontation, to initiation. On the soul's journey, in the search for the self, resistance amplifies our challenges, traps us in repetitive cycles. Happiness, well-being, psychic health reside in how we deal with the darker aspects of life, with our inner dragons, not in how we avoid them, how we deny them. Denial, aggressive struggle, stagnation in grief, sadness, anxiety or anger are forms of resistance that prevent us from touching the root of the problem, from integrating the shadow, from embracing the self. The more we cling to these negative patterns, to these protective shells, the more we resist healing, transformation. To nourish our psychic health, to become heroes of our own story, we need to embrace and traverse our emotions, integrate our opposites. Denial, minimization, blaming, and trying to change others are common expressions of resistance, of fear of confrontation. We cling to unresolved, unexplored feelings, to the shadow that haunts us. The first step towards healing, towards individuation, is to acknowledge the existence of the problem, the presence of the shadow. Surrender to reality, acceptance of what is, opens the way for transformation, for the encounter with the self. For example, imagine you are struggling to keep up with work. Your relationship with your boss is darker than ever, and the house mortgage weighs like a stone on your chest, because deep down, you are terrified of what would happen if you lost your job, your home, perhaps even your family. If your spouse leaves you, you may tend to minimize the problem, hide the true situation from your partner, wear the mask of the wounded warrior. Meanwhile, at work, instead of having a crucial conversation with your boss about the issue that plagues you, you may avoid even crossing paths with him in the break room, retreating to the safety of your cave. The more you resist this essential dialogue, the more you conceal the problem from your spouse, the more this stagnant energy will persist, deepening the wound, preventing healing. Be mindful of superstitions. Robert Moore guides us. Primitive superstition lies just beneath the surface, even in the most skeptical people. According to Moore, no matter how insightful, rational we believe ourselves to be, we are still influenced by archetypal mythologies, ancestral patterns, limiting beliefs, cultural superstitions. Moore believed it's precisely those who believe themselves immune to such influences by virtue of their supposed detachment who most readily succumb to them. Therefore, it's crucial to acknowledge our vulnerability, our connection to the collective psyche. One of Robert Moore's key concepts is that of the universal psyche, the collective unconscious, the consciousness common to all humanity, the realm of archetypes. Moore saw life's grand themes, human challenges and potentialities, intertwined with primordial images emerging from this collective unconscious, this cauldron of archetypal energies. Within it reside the forces that shape us, the patterns we repeat, the shadows that haunt us, and the light that guides us. Archetypal images have been sedimenting for millennia, shaping our hero's journey. Our essential conflicts reflect the eternal patterns of the masculine psyche. They've been repeatedly experienced by the warriors, kings, magicians, and lovers who came before us, and their echoes resonate in our unconscious, as Robert Moore so aptly described. Superstitions are some of the ways in which man attempts to connect with these archetypal patterns, seeking to integrate wild energy. To flee these primitive expressions is to deny the shadow. It's healthier to acknowledge and integrate them into our journey of individuation, as Robert Moore teaches us, however absurd they may seem to our rational mind. To avoid succumbing to them, the first step is to recognize our own vulnerability, our own shadow. For example, according to Robert Moore, many inexplicable phobias stem from the repressed energy of the wild man. Fear of the dark, of our own aggression, loud noises, of crossing into the unknown, bridges, or of contact with life force blood. Even with the rarity of snakes in Great Britain, for instance, many children demonstrate an instinctive fear of them. The fear of the serpent is the manifestation of the inner dragon, present even in the myth of Adam and Eve, generating countless superstitions that, according to Robert Moore, reveal aspects of the masculine psyche. Indeed, Robert Moore postulates an evolutionary advantage for those who access the protective energy of the warrior, avoiding dangerous animals like snakes. Therefore, instead of ignoring the fear of the snake and venturing into its territory carelessly, like an immature lover, it's wiser to honor that fear, accessing the wisdom of the warrior and avoiding those areas, or at least taking appropriate precautions. Integrating the power of these archetypal images into our lives, as Robert Moore suggests, can be beneficial, but never at the expense of the magician's consciousness. Just because there are no snakes in the grass where you live doesn't mean you should walk barefoot, neglecting prudence. Think, don't judge. As Robert Moore said, thinking is difficult. It requires accessing the inner magician, which is why most people judge, projecting their own shadow. According to Moore, the act of judging reveals more about the judge's own journey than about the other person. It's all based on shadow projection. What bothers us in others reflects what is unbalanced within us, in our psyche. Observing others and how their actions affect us can be a key to self-understanding, to integrating the inner king, and resolving our internal conflicts. Furthermore, empathy, which Robert Moore associates with the compassion of the mature king, prevents us from judging. It's more ethical, more aligned with the archetype of the king, to reflect before criticizing. As the saying goes, don't judge someone until you've walked a mile in their moccasins, experiencing their journey. There's a fine line between the warrior's sincerity and the tyrant's harsh judgment. Unfiltered honesty, without the wisdom of the magician, can lead us to react rashly, judging unfairly because we don't know the entirety of the other person's hero's journey. Beware of hasty honesty without compassion. Take time to reflect, access the inner magician, analyze the situation from all archetypal angles, consider the other person's journey before acting. For example, if your assistant at work demonstrates unusually careless performance in recent weeks, instead of reprimanding him aggressively like a tyrant, talk to him with the king's compassion. Ask what's happening in his journey, what has changed recently, and how the problem can be solved. A simple conversation, guided by the magician's wisdom, can save professional and personal relationships. Avoid excessive pride. Robert Moore warns us, through pride, the inflation of the ego, we are always deceiving ourselves, trapped in the tyrant's snare. But deep, down, beneath the surface of average consciousness, the voice of the inner king tells us that something is out of tune. According to Moore, we often fear looking inward and facing the arduous work of personal growth, the hero's journey. When this fear finds justification in the context, in social settings, whether at work or with friends, it's easy to cling to defensive patterns of behavior, to the tyrant mask. One such defense is pride, which Moore sees as self-deception, an obstacle to an authentic life, to the integration of archetypes. Therefore, pride is often a sign of fragility, of the tyrant's shadow, not of true strength, of the mature king. Neurosis, according to Moore, is often associated with excessive pride. Neurotic people avoid certain activities or people that might hurt their ego, the tyrant's mask. Sometimes they even avoid careers out of pride. This avoidance is unconscious, automatic, a defense mechanism of the shadow. For example, although many of us love to draw or paint, expressing the creative energy of the lover, we may hesitate to buy the necessary materials for fear of not being good enough. Trapped by the tyrant's criticism, we avoid painting to avoid confronting our limited skills and protect our pride. The fragile mask. We prefer to believe we don't have time, a tyrant's excuse, than to admit that we're at a beginner level and that there's much to learn, like a humble apprentice. Another example is when we cling to a job out of fear of pursuing our dream job and failing, discovering that we need to develop new skills, honoring the hero's call. Pride, the tyrant's mask, hinders our growth in all areas of life, our journey of individuation. To evolve on all levels, as Robert Moore describes, we need to cultivate the humility of the mature king, dare to face the reality of our limitations, and dedicate ourselves to improvement, to the hero's journey. Embrace growing older. Robert Moore wrote, "Life, the true hero's journey, begins in the second half of life. Until then, you're just doing research, learning from the archetypes." Moore describes this phase as an awakening to the inner king, to one's own inner voice, individuation. Until this age, we often follow paths opened by others, seeking the wisdom of guides and mentors like apprentices, wary of deviating from the known path. However, upon entering the second half of life, the ephemerality of life is revealed more clearly, pushing us to find our authentic expression, the hero's journey, no matter the cost. At this stage, having lived a good part of our earthly journey, a vast field of possibilities unfolds, guided by the wisdom of the magician and the compassion of the king. In the second half of life, we inhabit our skin with greater comfort, confident in our abilities, enriched by experiences, and less concerned with the opinions of others, encouraging us to embrace profound transformations. Therefore, in the first half of life, we should absorb the teachings offered to us, seeking the fertile ground that resonates with our soul with the hero's call. And then, upon crossing this portal, emerge in our independence, expressing our unique voice and cultivating life principles aligned with our essence with the integration of archetypes. Tell your story. Robert Moore illuminated the root of human suffering with the following statement: "The reason for suffering in the world is that people cannot tell their stories, their heroes' journeys." As a profound connoisseur of the male psyche, Moore understood the importance of creating a sacred space for each individual to narrate their own journey, their process of individuation. By sharing our narratives, a process of integration begins, in which unconscious contents, such as, for example, a hidden impulse to hurt someone, the tyrant's shadow, emerge into the light of consciousness, guided by the wisdom of the magician. Moore called this journey of integration individuation. This process of individuation, so well described by Moore, transcends the therapeutic context and can be experienced simply through writing. Armed with pen and paper, in a haven of quietude and time, we can immerse ourselves in our story, in our hero's journey. If you prefer, share your narrative with a dear friend or record it aloud. Don't limit yourself to external events. Explore also the dream world, the inner landscapes, the nuances of your mind, seeking the teachings of the archetypes. We are the sum of our experiences, but also of how we interpret them, in the light of our hero's journey, of the dreams that inhabit us and the visions we project for the future. Writing helps us weave our own personal mythology. By shaping this mythology, we access the totality of our being, integrating latent potentials, the archetypes, into consciousness. Only then can we live with full authenticity as a mature king. If this video resonated with you, explore our complete playlist of philosophies for life, inspired by the teachings of Robert Moore. For more videos that inspire success and happiness found through ancient wisdom, the hero's journey, subscribe to our channel. gratitude for your presence, and until next time.